So we're going to have to sketch the graph of the function between 0 and 2 pi. Here's 0, here's 2 pi. So we're going to start by finding the amplitude. The amplitude is 3. It's the number in front of the cosine function. It's the a, absolute value of a. Period for cosine is 2 pi divided by b. So we will substitute b in, which is 1/2. And we will get again 2 pi times 2 because you have to multiply by the reciprocal, which gives us 4 pi. So our period is 4 pi. That means one cycle of our graph, of our cosine graph, is going to end at 4 pi. I'm going to draw a sketch of this graph before I do it on the main copy. It's just easier that way. So we know it's a positive cosine graph. Positive cosine graph starts up, goes to 0, goes to the negative point, back to 0, and back to the positive. Okay, so this is the curve. Now, notice this breaks into 4 equal intervals. 1, 2, 3, 4. So to get this point where it ends, we already found it. It's the period, which is 4 pi. Now, since these are equal intervals, we can find out what each one of these intervals is by taking your period and dividing it by 4. So 4 pi divided by 4 is just pi. So this would be at pi. This would be pi, another pi. So pi plus pi is 2 pi. And this would be 3 pi. And our amplitude is 3, so the highest point we go to is 3, and the lowest point we go to is -3. So now we have our points. Now we just have to plot them on the graph. So at 0, we're at 3. So 0, positive 3, put a point. The next point we have is pi. Pi is right here. So we're at 0 at pi, so put a point at pi. And at 2 pi, which is all the way over here, we're at -3. So we go down to -3. And there's our graph. So just connect the points, and that's all we're going to see on this graph from 0 to 2 pi. Okay, in letter B, we have a negative sine function. So the amplitude, the number in front of the sign is not there, so it's 1. So we're going to go up and down 1 from the 0. And our period is, again, 2 pi over b. In this case, b is 2, so 2 pi divided by 2 is just pi. So our period is pi. So we're going to sketch this graph first. Sine graph starts at 0, but since it's a negative, it's going to go down first, back up to 0, back up to the positive, and back to 0. So those are the 5 points on the sine graph. Okay, so our ending point is at pi. So again, this is split into 4 equal intervals, so I'm going to take pi and divide it by 4 to figure out what this first coordinate is. So that's just pi over 4. So the next one is going to be pi over 4 plus pi over 4, which is 2 pi over 4. And if you reduce 2 pi over 4, the 2 and the 4 will cancel, and you'll end up with pi over 2. So this point is just pi over 2. And then this one over here is going to be pi over 4 plus pi over 4 plus another pi over 4, which is actually just 3 times pi over 4. So we can do 3 pi over 4 for that coordinate. And then we'll get back to 4 pi over 4 here, which reduces down to just pi, which is what we said we had to stop at. Okay, so our amplitude is at 1, so this will be at -1, and this highest point will be at +1. So now we just graph the points. 0, 0 is the first coordinate. Pi over 4, which is this mark right here before pi over 2, is down at -1. Then at pi over 2, we're at 0. And then 3 pi over 4 is right here, 3 pi over 4, and that's up at 1. and then back down at pi we're at 0. And then we just continue the same pattern to the next points because we want to finish between 0 and 2 pi. So then we just sketch the curve and we're done at 2 pi. Now we're supposed to see two full function or two full cycles between 0 and 2 pi, and you can see that we do. So that's right. Okay, and the last one we have a tangent. Okay, in a tangent we need to get our interval for our asymptotes. So our equation is pi over 2b, positive and negative, between positive and negative pi over 2b. So we will substitute in b, which in this case is pi over 2. So we can put pi divided by 2 times pi over 2. So we need to do some math here. 2 times pi over 2, again we just multiply straight across, you get 2 pi over 2, or you can just reduce these 2's, they cancel, so it's pi divided by pi. Well, pi divided by pi is just 1. So our interval is between -1 to +1. So those are the asymptotes. So in this case, these lines are going up by half, so 1 is right here. So here's an asymptote. It's really hard to see here, so let me grab sorry, I wanted to grab another color here so that I can show you these asymptotes better. So here's your asymptote at 1 and at -1. Are your asymptotes. Okay, so now we go right to the middle between those two asymptotes and put a point. And then halfway between 0 and 1 is a half. We'll go up to +1. And halfway between -1 and 0 is -1/2. And then we just approach our asymptotes but never hit them. And there's one cycle of our graph. Now we need to do another one. So what we're going to do is draw another asymptote the same distance away. So this is a distance of 2, so we'll go another distance of 2 and put an asymptote. Okay, and then do the same thing. Halfway between, put a point in the middle, then halfway between the 0 and the asymptote, a point is at +1, and then down at -1, and continue toward the asymptotes. And that's the tangent graph.